Summer Night is the first great book in the Dresden Files. It establishes interesting lore in the form of the winter and summer court of fairies, drawing from a variety of real mythological inspirations, and has a solid mystery that doesn't feel too cheap, as well as developing the characters, both internally and in their relationship with others. While Grave Peril had some good moments, there was a disconnect between the A and B plots, but in Summer Night, they're interwoven beautifully. We also get to see real consequences from the actions there, making the series feel less Monster of the Week, demonstrating the consequences of starting a war with the vampire courts. Again, we see this in a large scale, with Harry's interactions with the Council, and on a personal level, with how Harry has fallen apart in search of a cure for vampirism. That's where the book starts, him in disheveled mess, with Billy, a member of the Alphas, forced to get him out and about. While the series as a whole doesn't delve too much into mental health, Harry is clearly depressed here, and traumatized from his experiences with the vampires. Despite this, he still goes and investigates a reign of toads, trying to determine whether it's mischievous pranksters or an omen of something greater. While out, he is attacked by the Tigress and some budget hitmen. He manages to get away relatively unscathed, but it helps highlight what his life has been like, constantly in danger, even while doing everyday things. Billy arranged for a client meeting, and Harry meets up with the definition of a femme fatale, who is less than impressed with his appearance and demeanor. When something looks to be too good to be true, it probably is, and Harry sniffs out the fact that something is off, revealing his would-be client to be Mab, the evil queen of the fairy court, with evil being a relative term. She has taken on his debt to his fairy godmother and tasks him with investigating the death of Ronald, a local artist, and finding out what was stolen from him. As we come to learn, Ronald was the knight of the summer court, effectively their hitman, and his mantle, the source of his power, was stolen. Harry initially declines the offer, despite the personal pain it costs him, but that doesn't last long. The B-plot of the book is about him starting the war with the vampires, and the White Council's attempts to set him up as a scapegoat. This is also the first on-screen appearance of the Council, as well as a number of prominent wizards including the Merlin, the leader of it, and Ebenezer, Harry's old mentor. We also learn that the vampires attacked a compound in Archangel, killing everyone there including a senior council member named Simon. He's a definite death, but there's no firm number for how many others were killed. However, in Blood Rights, Ebenezer says that more wizards were killed than any enemy in our history at Archangel. Again, non-specific, but it's enough for an estimate. The White Council has approximately 3,000 to 5,000 members. This attack is marked as quite significant. We can estimate that killing 1% would be notable, and anything more would be a one-off event. With that in mind, we'll say about 100 people were killed in Archangel, including Simon. This is not exact, but to ignore it for being non-specific also feels wrong. The stronghold is referred to as a tower and a fortress, so a large amount of staff in addition to wizards makes sense. We also know that during the attack at least 6 vampire nobles were killed, and many warriors. Again non-specific, but given it was a surprise attack, and the many as compared to the 6, 20 sounds reasonable. It's likely much higher, but for now, that's all we can count. The Council has a huge discussion which basically amounts to, if Harry doesn't fulfill Mab's request, she won't help the Council and he will be fed to the wolves. Not the friendly werewolf kind either. He agrees to the conditions and sets out to find his closest ally, Murphy. It turns out she's still torn up from the psychic trauma of the last book, which again shows the consequences of what they're dealing with. That, combined with the death of her ex-husband, Gregory, and she is a real bad knight, and Harry puts her to rest, with the assurance she'll help out in the future. Upon returning to his apartment, he finds out that Elaine, his high school girlfriend, did not burn up in a fire, and has been sheltered by the Summer Court of Fairies. She's also been chosen as an emissary, the same as Harry, but on the other side. They agree to investigate separately, but share their findings. We learn more about the fairy courts through Bob's exposition, and then Harry sets out to meet the fairies. The basic summary is there are 3 queens per court, and the knight. The lady is the youngest, the queen the middle, and the crone the oldest. He starts with the winter lady, Maeve. Using a Tinkerbell XP as a guide, he finds his way to her underground ballroom, complete with a full live orchestra. Maeve has enchanted them, and the trumpeter is forced to play until he collapses, dead. After that, the winter knight Slate shows up, and proves that he's an uncontrollable junkie, and that Maeve is a wild child. Harry then dismisses them as suspects. Elaine is then discovered injured and dying in his car, and he takes her to the Summer Lady, hoping to get her healed. Tinkerbell guides him again, and he bumps into Aurora, who first fakes being a mere servant, before revealing herself as the Summer Lady, after sussing out the kind of man Harry is. She agrees to heal Elaine, and Harry sees her good nature and figures it can't be her. Without any good clues, he calls up Murphy and lays everything out. Not just the fairy stuff either. She's now fully educated about how magic works, the White Council, and in general the supernatural world. This is a turning point for the character, who is now purely on Harry's side, and it's a positive move. This all occurs in a Walmart cafe, when suddenly it's attacked by a smattering of creatures, including the ghoul tigress from before, an ogre, and a giant plant monster. Murphy mentions that the tigress has claimed eaten 2 robbery victims, so they'll get added to the count. After a number of separate encounters throughout the store, most of the fairies get away, but the plant monster, or chlorofiend, is brought down with a chainsaw by Murphy. Harry then asks his fairy godmother for help, and she shows what's at stake. If the balance of power is not restored, there will be an apocalypse, give or take. Either eternal growth or never-ending winter. Either way, the planet will survive, but humans might not. This is the first real big threat in the series, and for the 4th book in the series, it makes sense. The apocalypses do get less threatening around the 3rd time, but that's sort of inevitable. With those stakes in mind, Harry manages to find Elaine at the airport, and convinces her to go with him to see the mothers. That works, and he gets some cryptic advice from them, as well as an unraveling that can remove any enchantment. It's also made clear that they are above petty disputes as a single mortal's life and death, so that eliminates them as suspects. With that in mind, Harry has gone through all the potential murderers and can't find one who fits. After leaving the mother's shack, everything falls into place, but not before he's ambushed, and the twist of the book is revealed. Aurora, working with Slate, orchestrated the murder of the Summer Night in order to end the eternal cycle of violence by giving all the power to one side. A temporary upside in order to bring about a better world. Not the worst outcome, but given the effects on humanity, it's not an option. Elaine both backstabs Harry and builds in an escape for him, allowing him to get ready for the final battle. To that end, he teams up with the Alphas and a group of half-fairies that he made the acquaintance of, and they head to the docks. There they are confronted by the Tigress again, but she's not ready to deal with a full wolf pack and is torn apart. The group then ascends up to the battle in the sky with the full might of the fairy courts in an all-out war. Despite the sheer scale of what's described, there are not too many fatalities on screen, as it were. There are thousands of soldiers in all descriptions, but Harry's strike team moves through a very limited section of the battlefield. The first real conflict they find is a group of giant bees fighting goblins. A dozen of the little humanoids are described as dead or dying from bee venom, and then Harry's fire manages to toast one of the creatures and send the rest retreating. Slate then arrives on a horse, decapitates another goblin, and the rest flee, as goblins are wont to do. He brings with him a whole cavalry unit of mounted city warriors, but Harry uses a quick spell to knock the horses over, and they all die horribly, as they are wont to do. We aren't going to count animals, however, even if they are a different color or size. The warriors outmatch the Alphas and Harry, but then Maeve and her battalion arrive and cut them down. 3 fairy warriors are variously killed, and then the rest retreat, with the winter unit giving chase. Harry, on the other hand, runs for the main objective, the stone table, where power transference can occur. He gets there with assistance from Elaine, and despite her second-in-command, Talos, attempting to stop him, his own allies come in clutch in the form of dozens of little fairies with box cutters, and Meryl the troll. Talos is torn apart by thorns, and Aurora is sentenced to a death of 1,000 cuts. Finally, Meryl dies from her wounds, the final fatality in the War of the Clouds. In the end, things work out for Harry, having completed Mab's quest, in discovering the murderer, and thus retaining his status as a wizard of the White Council. He also realizes that his friends are what carried him through the events of the book, and goes and meets up with the Alphas, determined to move on from Susan and the traumas of his past. In total, that's 152 deaths in 200 pages, continuing the trend of an increasing body count every book. That's a death on average every 1.3 pages. There's a decent variety in this one, but interestingly enough, no human women are killed, although there is a ghoul and fairy queen. Next book introduces demons and another apparent apocalypse. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, leave a comment and be well.